Welcome back to another episode of the Fifth Quarter Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Jones, the Bluff City Cowboy, coming to you live from Memphis, Tennessee. And unfortunately, this is not a Victory Wednesday. The Dallas Cowboys fell to the New Orleans Saints on Sunday. So today we're going to do a quick recap of last week's game, and then we will look ahead to this week's matchup against the Baltimore Ravens. Should be a really good game. Baltimore has not won a game yet this year. They lost a game. Most people expected them to lose to the Chiefs. And then they had a big upset against the Las Vegas Raiders. I apologize, Las Vegas Raiders. So they're definitely going to come into this week's game with a big chip on their shoulders. It's going to be a big game for both teams. We're both trying to stay in the hunt. Teams that start off 1-2 statistically don't have good chances of making the playoffs. So both teams are really trying to make sure that they can keep pace with the rest of their respective conferences. So thank you guys for joining us today. I see those views are going up pretty quick. So thank you guys for watching. And I see the likes are not matching those views. So before we get this thing started, if you haven't done so already, be sure to hit that like button. You can like, you can love, you can even hate. We take all engagement that we can get because it all goes into the algorithm. I definitely appreciate everybody that's joining us. We got Jeff Pop becoming a regular, so thank you for tuning in. Dak has more tackles than Mozzie. That's how I start my recap. See, I got my guy Jeff joining us all the way in Jacksonville, Florida, so thank you for tuning in. I got my guy Mendoza joining us as always. Appreciate your support. Mendoza, I told you we need to send you to every game because you going to that Cleveland game, I still feel made the difference. So Cowboys fans, if you're out there, let's start a GoFundMe so we can get Mendoza at every Cowboys game so they look more like Cleveland and less like New Orleans. I see we got another guy joining us, becoming a regular. We got Cortland tuning in. Cortland, thank you for joining us as always. We got my guy Pregame Sweat, Eric, joining us. Eric, thank you for tuning in. And we have the Cowboys podcast legend, Spoonie, joining us from New York. So, Spoonie, appreciate you tuning in also. If you guys haven't done so already, make sure you like us. And also make sure you go over and find Pick Six Sports on Facebook and YouTube. Give those guys a like. Give those guys a subscribe. Check out all the great stuff they have going on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Matthew Hugart joining us. I hope I didn't butcher that, Matthew, but thank you for joining. Then we got Cy Witherspoon, one of my admin compadres with the DC4L Facebook group. So, Cy, as always, thank you for joining us also. Got Ice Cold Cowboy tuning in. Thank you for joining us, Ice Cold Cowboy. While I'm talking, I see those likes are starting to match up with those views. So let's get those views up. Let's also get those likes up. If you guys haven't done so already, I can look at the views and I see most of you guys are watching from the DC4L Facebook group. So kudos to you for you guys joining us on Instagram. And you get a chance, make sure you log into your Facebook page. Go find DC4L, 4 letters, simple to find. Join that Facebook group. A lot of great content, a lot of great conversation in a safe space for Dallas Cowboys fans. Also, find me on Facebook at Bluff City Cowboys. And then also go over to YouTube, find the DC4L Facebook group on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. And also go find me on YouTube at Bluff City Cowboys. I will be putting the link to my my YouTube channel in the chat. So if you guys get a second before, during, or after we start going over this content, hit that button, give me a subscription, help me on my path to 1,000. I would greatly appreciate it. Got another diehard Cowboy fan, Barry Griffin, joining us from the Cowboys Experience. He's one of the sponsors of DC4L. So Barry, thank you for joining. I heard you guys had a great time this weekend with Amanda Foster and Tanya Cole. You guys have changed locations, I believe, to a sports bar instead of outdoors. But I heard the experience was still top notch as always. So kudos to you on all you do for Cowboys Nation and Cowboy fans to give them the Cowboys experience. Bruiser Burrow becoming another regular. I say let's just not even bring up the Saints game and move forward. I have to bring it up, Bruiser. As a Cowboys fan, we got to take the good with the bad. We got to take our lumps. I'll go through it quickly, and then we'll go to the Ravens game because I got to talk about the run game. Defensive run defense, not offense. I'm not even touching offense tonight. Bruiser, like you said, we're going to get through this thing quickly. The game got out of hand early. Is not a lot you can get in terms of assessing the offense. When the defense knows what you're doing and all you can do is pass, you're going to abandon the run, and the defense knows you're going to pass it. So it's really hard to gauge how the offense really looked this week. So I'm not even touching offense. So those views are going up pretty quick. Views are going up pretty quick. Let's go ahead and get into it, and let's start off with our game recap of last week's game.
Game recap.
So as you guys know, Dallas Cowboys fell to the New Orleans Saints by a score of 19-44 at home in a very embarrassing loss on both sides of the ball. Jeff Clark, thank you for joining us. Alton Price says the defense PTO'd. You can't tell me any different. And Jeff Pop, using that old quarterback term, show me a team with 2 quarterbacks, I'll show you a team with no quarterbacks. If you show me a team with 3 or 4 running backs, I'm going to show you a team that doesn't have a running back. I'm right there with you, Jeff Pop. So, 1944, Cowboys lose to the Saints. I'm going to give you guys just a quick recap of some of the things I noticed. Like I said, I didn't really focus on the offensive side of the ball because we were down 20 points early. And once you're down that far, you can't run the ball because you need every second of clock. And when the defense knows you're going to pass it, the defensive linemen are just going to pin their ears back and go after the quarterback. The corners don't have to worry about stepping forward because they know everything's going to be a pass. So it's hard to gauge the offense. But a couple of things that I did notice watching the game. Dak does not have faith in any receivers on our team except for CD Lamb. When the game was somewhat manageable and Jalen Brooks slipped and they got that interception, after that point, Dak was pretty much like, screw it. CD, you got to bring us back or we're just not going to come back at all. There were several plays in the game where guys like Jalen Tolbert were open, Jalen Brooks were open, Schoonmaker was even open. Dak wasn't even looking their way. It was pretty much laser focused in on CD Lamb with an occasional Brandon Cooks thrown in there. So we either got to find a way to add some more juice to our receiving core, or these guys got to step up, or we just have to pray that Ferguson makes a return soon, like Ice Cold Cowboy said. Jack Meeker, thank you for joining us. Ready to see our response to this horrible game. Amanda Foster, co-creator of DC4L, thank you for joining. She won't be joining us again probably until the next rivalry game, but I definitely appreciate you joining us in the chat and keeping these guys honest. Matthew said, Jalen Tolbert did make a beautiful catch. Again, he went to other guys in spurts, but for the most part, he was laser focused on CD Lamb. Bruiser Burrow, it's a trust issue thing. And before the season started, we talked about this. Looking at preseason and looking at the few clips from training camp, it looked like these guys were starting to really build a chemistry with Dak. Week 1, I mean, that game was a blowout so quick we didn't really need them. But in this game, it kind of showed. The chemistry not there as much as we thought. Jeff bringing up the Stephon Diggs coming soon. If you guys joined the show a couple of weeks ago, Amanda and I kind of gave our thoughts on how Jerry Jones finds a way to get the Diggs brothers back together. I'm still going to stand firm on that. And I wouldn't be shocked if that happens at some point before the end of the season. And Amanda, unfortunately, was at the game. So sorry you had to go through that. But I'm sure just being a Cowboys fan, you still had a great experience. Jack Meeker said Watkins gives us anything more from being a pushover. Kevin Nichols, we don't lose back-to-back games at home. As a matter of fact, I think this was our first home game loss in the regular season dating back to 2021 or 2022. So we definitely do defend our home turf well. So hopefully we don't start another negative streak going. Second observation. The right side of the offensive line is starting to get concerning. 2 weeks in a row, Zach Martin hasn't looked like Zach Martin. And then he went out briefly with a knee injury. But he came back. But that's definitely something you have to monitor. And as we talk about next week's game or this week's game, I'll let you guys know a little bit why that should be even more concerning as Cowboys fans. Terrence Steele is taking us on that usual roller coaster he takes us on. He's not quite Terrence Aluminum yet, but he's starting to show some signs of it. He gives you above average play for the most part, but then he's going to give you 3 or 4 plays where it's like, what the world were you looking at and what were you thinking? So we definitely got to pay close attention to that right side. I know they're trying to help the left side out because we got the rookie, but we may have to start running more 12 personnel with 2 tight ends, or hoping Tyler Guyton can hold up and sending those tight ends to that right side a little bit more. Joel Castleton, you're right. Everybody else is letting the offensive line off easy. They did not play well. You're 100% right. But like I said at the beginning of the show, when you're dealing with a blowout, it's kind of hard to gauge the offense because the front 7 does not have to play the run. So if you take all pro level defensive linemen or even just above average defensive linemen and you tell them they don't have to worry about playing the run, you're going to get a much better looking defensive front 7 than you would in a typical game. Alton Price says Terrence sheet metal. I won't take a sheet metal is a little stronger than aluminum. So I like that Alton Price. Terrence sheet metal until we see otherwise. Oh my goodness. Jack Meeker, thank you for pointing this out. I was just about to talk about it. The right side is looking bad, but Tyler Guyton is still playing in survival mode. He's still dipping his head. His hands are still going wide. He's still kind of using his shoulder to block instead of his hands. His technique is starting to slip more and more every week. Luckily, it hasn't cost us yet, but we got some tough matchups coming up. So hopefully he can continue to clean those things up. Matthew Hughart saying I have issues with the defense more this season. Ravens are a running game team. A lot of teams will see that. We'll talk about that in a minute, Matt Hughart, but thank you for that comment. Yeah. TJLBF Delaney. Yeah, we definitely got to think about doing more 2 tight end sets. For one, like I said at the beginning of the show, Dak has kind of lost faith in his receivers. So if he's not going to pass it to him, just put a second tight end out there. It helps in pass defense, and maybe he'll have more faith in Schoonmaker than he would in Jalen Brooks. So if you do need an occasional route by another guy, you got a big body like Schoonmaker who can get out there and make some plays. Also, similar to what the Saints did to us, if you put two tight ends out there, you can kind of dictate the defense into playing more of a base instead of nickel, and then you can get some more mismatches in the running game as well as the pass game. Kevin Nichols saying Dalvin Cook to the rescue. I don't know about that. We'll probably be finding out soon, though. And like I said before, you bring up Dalvin Cook. It was hard to get a read on the running game because, like I said, the game was out of hand early. The few runs that they did make did not look bad. Again, they weren't good, but they weren't bad. They were right in the middle. We were still getting 3.9 to 4 yards a carry, no matter which running back came in. So it's definitely better than I thought it would be, but it's still not enough. Maybe Dalvin Cook could be that difference. Maybe not, but I'm sure within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we will find out. I got a couple other questions. Jeff says Zeke not starting was concerning. Now, I didn't hear anybody ask the question, but of course, you know how the Cowboys are. Jerry runs everything, so maybe he told the media not to ask the question, or maybe I missed it. But I know, like I said, this show is fueled by the fan base. And I know all of you guys are diehard Cowboys fans. So if you heard something in the interviews or the press conferences about why the team didn't use Zeke, please let me know because I may have overlooked it. TJ LBF Delaney asking the question, who we dropping for Cook? Rico said something, anything there you think? So TJ, great question. First of all, they don't have to drop anybody to get Cook on the roster for a minimum of 3 weeks. Under the new practice squad rules, you can bring a player up from the practice squad for 2 weeks, and then after the game, put them on the practice squad, put them back on the practice squad. So for 2 weeks, they can bring Dalvin Cook up, make him an active player, and we won't have to adjust the roster. Now, after the 3rd week, the rule used to be you had to cut them, but NFL teams got smart to that. So they would bring up the veterans, and then after 3 weeks, they cut the veterans. And then because veterans don't have to clear waivers, they could sign them right back to the practice squad. So this year, the league changed the rule. Now, if you bring a player up from the practice squad, to bring him up a 3rd time, you have to put him on the active roster. So you can't do that thing they used to do where we sign a guy. We'll use Dalvin Cook, for example. We signed Dalvin Cook. Veterans don't have to clear waivers until after the trade deadline. So if Dalvin Cook came up from the practice squad twice, the 3rd time we could bring him up, then we cut him. He doesn't clear waivers. You tell him, hey, don't answer the phone. Let us get to Tuesday. We're going to sign you right back to the practice squad. And they would just kind of keep repeating that pattern over and over again. We did it all last year with CJ Goodwin. So for a lot of you fans who were wondering, why did we keep CJ Goodwin on the 53-man roster this year instead of on the practice squad? That's the reason why. Because last year we were able to keep him on the practice squad, let him play, cut him, and sign him right back. But they changed the rules this year, so you can't do that anymore. So TJ, when he comes up 2 weeks, the 3rd week, we'll come back to this question and we'll talk about who's the guy who gets cut to make room for Dalvin Cook on the roster. But great question, and I appreciate you and all of your engagement with the show. We got the Beard Gang in the building saying it's a new defensive scheme. Let's pump the brakes on killing them. Got my guy Raphael Govan, a longtime friend, diehard Cowboy fan, saying Jerry needs to take a permanent vacation in Cabo. Even if he did, I don't know if that would help because don't forget, This is the same guy who was on his mega yacht and did the draft. We still have the same thing, but just from a different zip code. Skylar Devins looks like a new name. So Skylar, thank you for joining. Discipline is the biggest problem we lack when things aren't going well on both sides of the ball. Players give up, or they just get upset and check out. Dumb penalties, questionable play calls. You're preaching to the choir, Skylar Devins. I do have a couple of plays that I pulled out that I do want to talk about before we go to the Ravens game. Just a couple of things that stood out. And I know you guys have probably seen this quite a bit, but I just wanted to bring it up on the show, give you guys my thoughts on what I saw. So let me go to my defensive notes, and then we will go to those plays. So a lot of you guys who were in the comments are also in group chats with me. And the one thing that I noticed that bothered me, I thought the team played way too much base defense. Now, you guys just heard me say Dallas should run more 12 personnel so that we force teams to play defense in a base. That's exactly what the Saints did to us. They put 2 tight ends out there. They put a fullback and a tight end, and they made us run a 4-3 defense. Now, the problem with that, when you add that third linebacker, because our linebackers are inexperienced, you're adding one inexperience, and you're eliminating some speed. So for me, I would have rather they stayed in a nickel, and instead of bringing in Clark, you bring in Marquise Bell, and you just let Marquise Bell play a star position, state safety linebacker hybrid. He still gives you some tackling in the box, and he has the speed and range to be able to help play in space. I think 2 of the biggest problems we had was, one, our linebackers, particularly Eric Kendricks, could not get to the edge, and number 2, they could not cover in space. Now, I don't know if you guys heard this in the interviews, but they asked Jerry or Mike McCarthy, why did we only see Overshown for 19 snaps in the game? And the response that Mike McCarthy gave was disturbing. The response was, when we practice our base defense, which is a 4-3, the linebackers were Clark, Leofau, and Kendricks. Because we didn't practice with Overshown in the base defense, we didn't see the need to really play him. And because the team dictated that we run heavy base, we hardly ever saw Overshown playing with our base defense. He was always in the nickel. Now, to me, that's concerning because, number one, he was arguably your best player week 1 on defense. Why are you letting a scheme dictate players? I thought we got past that, but apparently we didn't. Raphael Govan asking the question, what do you think about Lawson playing right defensive ends and our linebackers will be Parsons strong side, Kendricks middle, Overshown weak? Good question, Raphael. Like I just said, I don't want to see us in base. I want to see us in nickel. That's what I want. Now, if you want to play nickel and you want to play Micah and Kendricks, or Micah and Overshown, or Micah or Overshown and Kendricks, and rotate that in with a nickel, I'm good with that. I don't want to see us go too much in a 4-3. But if we did go in a 4-3, I would like to see Parsons playing as the Sam as opposed to Clark, because Parsons does give you a little bit more sideline to sideline ability. And when they put Micah at defensive end, they pretty much just run at him because Micah has problems with containing because he likes to play hero ball. That's just my opinion. So you definitely good question. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I would much rather see them stick with a nickel. Yeah, more Overshown, less Clark. Bring in Wanye and Bale if you want to get a little bit bigger with your nickel, and let those guys work. I love it, TJ. Spoonie saying we need to spy Lamar with Overshown. I think we will because we did that in the Browns game, so I'm expecting to see that. Jeff asking the question, where was the double A gap blitz this game? Again, we let them dictate our defense. Because of the way they ran their offense, it was hard for us to do a double A gap blitz or even show it because they always had two tight ends on one side. So if you brought two guys, so let's say we ran a double A gap blitz. We didn't even run it. We just ran a look. So and when I show the play in a second, you'll see. If this is the line and they've got two tight ends right here, and we've got both of our linebackers right here in the gaps, if they were to go out and run a route, somebody's going to be wide open because these linebackers would have no way to get out there and cover those tight ends. So their scheme kind of dictated what we did. And again, that's when you go to a nickel, because if you go to a nickel, now instead of having three linebackers out there, you have another safety or one of our big corners. So if you do decide to bring pressure or even show pressure, those tight ends are still going to be covered by a guy who can get out there and at least put a body on them. Govan says Stevie Wonder could have called a better game than what was called against the Saints. All right, we're at 27 minutes. That's all the notes I have for the Saints game. Let me just go through a couple of plays because I've seen people going through plays all week, and I just want to talk about a couple of them and give you guys my thoughts. So I've got 4 run plays pulled up for the New Orleans Saints, and I'm just going to talk through them, show you guys a little bit of what I see. And then, of course, if you guys have any questions about what you see or you see something that you think I missed, let me know. All right, so looking at this one play, remember what I said. We got too tight. So we got 87 right here, and we've got Taysom Hill lined up as an H-back. But there's 2 receivers out here. So this is the strong side. So if we would have ran a double, because they have 6 players on both sides, it's hard for the defense to kind of compact to show that double A gap blitz like you like, Jeff, because you gotta put these ends wide so that you can contain, because you don't know really what side they're gonna run to. But because they have more receivers on this side that are off the screen, this is the strong side. So because this is the strong side, what you would expect to see is number 99, Chauncey Golston. He's going to contain the backside. Either this corner or this safety is also going to be in charge of this tight end on the backside or cover or helping contain if there's a cutback on the run, because you're assuming they're going to run strong side. All of these linemen are supposed to flow this way. So 94 is supposed to contain right here. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse. I hope you can. Bruiser Burrows, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. I just got to go through these plays because it bothered me. So we're in a base defense. So here are 3 linebackers. This defensive tackle is supposed to flow this way. This D tackle is supposed to flow this way. This linebacker, 35, is supposed to contain on the outside along with the end. Number 50 has this gap. Number 13 should have this gap. And again, remember, the defensive linemen are supposed to maintain at the line of scrimmage and flow towards the strong side. Let's see what happens when the ball gets snapped. Ball snap, bam. look at where 98 is. 98 is beside the linebacker. So now this linebacker who's supposed to cover this gap, he can't get there because 98 is in his face mask. And because he's getting whooped so bad, this guard is now going to be able to come off of the D tackle and block this linebacker. So if they wanted to come backside right here, they could. 93 is good for right now. 94 is good. There's going to be an alley right here, but that's supposed to be okay because that is this linebacker number 50's responsibility to fill this alley. It's 13's responsibility to fill this alley. And 21 and 99 take care of the backside. Let's move the play on a little bit more. Now, look at 98. Because he got beat so bad, 13 cannot get to his gap, which is right here. So what does 50 do? He fills in this linebacker's gap. Now remember, I said this is his gap. So if 50 dips inside, there's no one to fill this gap. So that leaves an open alley for the running back. 50 should have been right here to make this tackle, but because 98, who's almost at the safety position, got beat, 50 felt like he had to fill in the inside, and 98 still does nothing. Now he just gets finished off. So let me just back up real quick. For everybody who's wondering why number 98, Phillips, is on IR with a wrist injury, just watch this. When you get pushed 10 yards and fall on your hands, that leads to a wrist injury, as they call it. All right, let me go to a second play. And if you guys have any questions or anything, just let me know. But I just got to talk about a couple of these. Okay, so let me back up. So once again, this is the strong side. If you guys can see, this is the strong side. It looks like we're in a nickel defense because there are only two linebackers. This linebacker is playing wide because there are three receivers lined up over here. So this linebacker's job, because he's outside of the defensive end, his job is to cover the edge. Number 90's job is to contain outside, and number 13's job is to cover the running back. So 13's job is to cover here, here, here. Wherever that linebacker goes, he's supposed to fill it. Once again, all of these linemen are supposed to flow to the strong side and maintain the line of scrimmage. Number 11 and number 6 are responsible for backside contain and to clean up if there's a cutback. Let's see what happens when the ball gets snapped. All right. You want to know what hero ball is? Hero ball is when this defensive end, who's supposed to be playing outside contain, goes inside. Now, if he makes this tackle, it's a great play. But if he doesn't, there's nobody right here who can stop the running back because this offensive lineman has a clear shot at any linebacker or safety or corner who's in his path. Again, Mozzie Smith, he didn't take inside. He got beat inside. Like the guard just said, look, I was about to say something crazy, but the guard said, look, I'm just going to little boy you and just toss you out the way. Watch him. Watch Mozzie before we go through the play. Let's watch this. Get your on the ground. Okay. So that's a pancake on the sheet. Mozzie's, now look at this. Mozzie's outside of this guard. All he has to do is flow to the play side, the strong side. How do you, as a defensive tackle, exactly, I'm your dad. How do you, if you're already outside and you're supposed to play the strong side, how do you get beat on the outside, get forced inside, and then get pancaked. So now, like I said, we've got Mozzie getting pancaked. We've got D-Law playing hero ball, trying to cut inside. So now this guard has a free release with nothing but little guys in front of him. Now remember, I said 50 supposed to be outside and 13 supposed to play all of this. So let's see what happens when DeMarcus Lawrence plays hero ball. Okay, now right here, you've got a guard right here because Mozzie got whooped. You've got another guard right here because D-Law played hero ball. And Kendricks didn't beat this block. So when you have all that happens, you have a long run, bam. The guard, because D-Law played hero ball, gets to run for 15 yards before he touches a body. And the body he gets to touch is a 190-pound safety. So Alvin Kamara did us a favor right here because he could have easily cut inside and scored a touchdown, but he decided to run out of bounds. I got one more play. I'm sorry. I got one more play. I got to go through this again. Discipline, 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 or lack thereof. Yep. Hero ball. I got one more play, and then we'll talk about the Ravens game. I'm sorry, guys, but once you start talking about this stuff, I just got to show it. We back up. Okay. So once again, this is the strong side, but they see this guy in motion, so they're all playing wide. Looks like a nickel defense. So again, nickel defense. I can't tell by looking which guy has the running back, but one of them is supposed to, probably number 13. If the play goes to the left, 13 is supposed to bam the guard, and 50 is supposed to clean up. If it goes this way, 50 is supposed to bam the tackle, and 13 cleans up. So let's see what happens. Okay. So the play goes to the left. This defensive tackle's getting beat, but it's okay the way it is because the linebacker still can control this gap if he needs to, because 93 is holding up. And Sadiq Yvonne, you just hit my next note. Micah's supposed to squeeze. This is the short side. You've got a linebacker right here who's going to take care of the outside. So you don't have to go as wide. You're supposed to come inside a little bit more because you're on the weak side. Okay. So 13's job is supposed to be you take on this guy and then let 50 play cleanup. He didn't take him on. He got blown up. But also, who is this? 93. He was doing good at first. And instead of going across the line, he got pushed back into the linebacker. So right here, he completely prevented the linebacker from filling this gap. So again, defensive tackles not doing their job. Wide open outside run. If you guys got a second, I got one more. I'm sorry. I got one more I got to go through. If you guys have any questions, let me know. This is the last play, I promise. All right, last play. Strong side to the right, weak side to the left. We're in a base defense. So you assume because we're in a base, if the play goes this way, like Sadiq Yvonne said, Micah's supposed to squeeze. This linebacker goes here. This linebacker bams on the guard. Number 18 plays cleanup. If the play goes to the strong side, This linebacker's responsible for the outside. These linemen are supposed to flow this way. You've got this gap. You've got this gap. You play the running back to whatever hole. So you're basically what they call a scraper. So what scraping means, you're basically just going to shuffle, like Oklahoma drill with the bags on the ground. Shuffle. If he starts to come into a hole, you meet him there. Let's see what happens on this play, because I don't even remember. Okay. So he goes out. Number 18. That's not your job. When he goes out, you're supposed to get this receiver right here. So right now, assuming you're okay, but you got to watch where the ball goes. Okay. The ball goes to the left. Remember what I said. If the ball goes weak side, Micah is supposed to come in right here. Number 35's job is to cover the outside. And number 50's job is to scrape across and find wherever hole he goes through. But let's see what happens. For some reason, Leofau goes inside. For what reason, I do not know. Because Micah's right here and this tackle's back is turned. Why are you going inside? You stand right here and the running back basically falls into your lap. But let's see what he does. Gets caught up. Doesn't even slow the running back down. And now you depend on your cornerback to make a tackle. So undisciplined just all around. Skylar Devins, Taysom Hill, yes, he was in every example. Taysom Hill was low-key their player of the game. We had him pointed out as one of our X factors last week, and for good reason. His ability to block, provide that extra scare, made all the difference for the way they ran their offense. They kept us in base. Zimmer needs to knock the dust off his playbook. Yeah, 100%. Let's see. Skylar Devins. I'll definitely try to do that more as the season progresses. I finally kind of figured out how to do it. So I hope you guys are sticking with me. I hope I didn't drag on too long with that, but I just had to show it. Our defensive linemen were just getting their butts whooped, and our linebackers, even though the defensive tackles were getting beat, they were still playing undisciplined. We definitely got to clean all that stuff up for next week. And you're right, Jeff. Leofau is a rookie. But the way that play looked, it's hard to give him a pass. Your job is outside. Why are you going inside? There's nobody else outside that tackle. Why would you go inside and just leave the outside wide open? It made no sense. All right. So that's all I got in terms of the Saints game. Let's look ahead to the Ravens game. Once again, this is an interactive show. So once we start talking about the new week, I'm going to get you guys input. So if you haven't done so already, hit that like button, get in those comments, ask those questions. Let's keep the show progressing. So let's first look at the matchup we have against the Baltimore Ravens. Let's take a look at our key matchups.
Key matchups.
All right, so tail of the tape. We're scoring 26 a game. That's skewed because of week one. The Ravens have been consistently scoring about 21 and a half. Our scoring defense, we gave up a lot week two, gave up a little week one. Our average is 30. The Ravens have given up consistently about 26 a game. Turnover differential is pretty much the same. We both have forced a couple of turnovers, given away one or two. Skylar Devins asked the question, maybe he's thinking a fake run and dump to Hill. That could be a Skylar Devins, but again, I'm all about assignment football. If they make that play that you're talking about, that's not his fault. But letting the running back have a clear path to the sideline, that is his fault. So I would rather do my assignment and let the other guy get worried about getting chewed out in the film room. Ice Cold Cowboy, great comment. We'll get to that in a minute. So this is the kind of the tail of the tape. I have a couple of key matchups that I want to talk about. And if you guys have any matchups that you want to know about, or you got any questions about the matchups I chose, let me know. So we just talked a lot about the run defense. I got to go to the first key matchup. The first key matchup, and thank you for joining us, William Wiggins. Eric Kendricks versus Derrick Henry. Now, somebody made the comment a few minutes ago. I think I may have noted it. Ice Cold Cowboy saying the Ravens are bad at that air attack. And somebody else made a comment about the Ravens offense. Now, the thing about the Ravens offense, the problems that the Saints gave us, we won't have those against the Ravens. There's not going to be a lot of outside zone running. Derrick Henry's going to go A gap, B gap. You just got to meet him in the hole and you got to man up. So you definitely got to make sure you stop that run defense. And Eric Kendricks is going to be tasked with meeting Derrick Henry in the hole early and often. So this one is definitely going to dictate the outcome of the game. They don't have a lot of receiving weapons, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So they're definitely going to rely heavily on the running backs. Maurice White, that's the one I was looking for. Everyone thinks we just got whooped up front, but a little discipline at least gets us off the field. Maybe we only give up 35. Baltimore does run a completely different style. So all the problems that we had with the Saints, we should not have them with the Ravens. But they do bring in a completely different set of problems when you're talking about Derrick Henry and getting a full head of steam. Like Jeff said, you got to slow him down before he gets going. Okay, another key matchup I want to talk about, going back to the offense, and Mendoza just brought this up. It's all about run defense. You got to contain the running backs and Lamar. Second key matchup, Overshown versus Lamar Jackson. When we played the Browns, Overshown did a lot of spying on Deshaun Watson. I'm expecting to see more of the same this week. So I'm not expecting Overshown to only have 19 snaps. The Ravens are probably going to run a lot of 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends, 1 running back. You're probably going to see the Ravens running some 22 personnel with 2 tight ends and 2 running backs because their fullback is legitimate also. I hope they don't make the same mistakes they made last week and they keep Overshown the game. So I'm definitely going to pay attention to this one, particularly on 3rd and 6 or longer, because that's when Lamar Jackson does his most damage with his legs. We've been asking the question all offseason, Kevin Nichols. We paying the guy $5 million. He's on the bench. Throw him a running back. Let's see what happens. Kurt Whitmer asked, how are they going to cover Henry and Lamar with the quarterback option? Well, luckily for us, Kurt Whitmer, they don't really run a lot of quarterback option. So I don't think that's something we have to worry about. Derrick Henry is a big back. So it's hard to run options with him because he's the type of guy, he likes to be in the I formation. He likes to be single back. He likes to get ahead of steam. So if you're having him stand beside the quarterback and then wait for the quarterback to read before he goes, you're pretty much, as an offense, eliminating what Derrick Henry does best. If they do read option with Derrick Henry, we should all stand up and applaud. Amanda said Lamar sucks at motion, so at least there's that. Yeah, they run a very vanilla offense for the most part. It's gonna be single back, it's gonna be eye back. Lamar's gonna play action bootleg, and then he's gonna make some plays with his legs. So William William Wiggins just unloading with all the questions right now. William, I'll touch on all your questions and then we'll go to our next key matchup. Why was Overshown not used against New Orleans? We talked about this earlier in the show. Mike McCarthy said we ran a lot of base defense. Overshown had little experience in the base defense, so that's why they let Damone Clark play a lot more. You asked the question, why are we still using Deuce? That's a question I don't know the answer to. I guess we're at the point already in the show where we're throwing crap at the wall and we're going to see what sticks. So Deuce is a part of the crap we're throwing at the wall right now, and we're hoping it sticks and gets our running game going. Parsons says it's effort. Zimmer says it's not. I'm thinking mentality. The minute they got punched in the mouth, we're screwed. We just went through a couple of plays. If you caught that, William Wiggins, it was effort and it was discipline. Those were the two biggest problems I saw. As a defense, in that case, I would key on Lamar and not worry about Henry 100%. Now, like I said earlier in the show, I don't know why Zeke spent most of the first quarter on the bench. They didn't talk about it. I'm curious as to why. Charles Moon saying they're gonna throw different styles against us. This is one thing I'll say about the NFL, Charles Moon. You would think that as a offensive defensive coordinator, if you saw something work the week before, you try to implement it. The problem is these coaches are egomaniacs. And for the most part, every coach thinks my scheme is the best scheme, regardless of what I saw work in the past. So as a fan watching the game, you would think, hey, the Saints just torched us for 44 points at home. I would expect to see the same thing. From a coaching perspective, they're going to say, okay, the Saints did good at their scheme. I think my scheme's going to do just as good. So I doubt you're going to see a lot of the Saints concepts in this game. Teams build their roster based off the scheme that they run. So it's hard to change plays. It's hard to change schemes from week to week, especially a team like New Orleans. Like Baltimore, whose team is built off the power run. You got two big tight ends. You don't have a lot of speed on the edge. So they can't really do what the Saints did against us because their personnel won't allow it and they haven't practiced it. So I would doubt you see a lot of different styles thrown at us in this game. Ice Cold Cowboy saying Zimmer has 50 plays. Apparently we need to see all of them Sunday. We just need to see the 10 that work. Just like the Saints found 5 or 6 plays that worked against us, we need to find 5 or 6 good ones that we can use. And just like Jeff followed up what I said, yeah, teams don't have the personnel to do something different. I thought I saw a couple of my guys join us. I thought I saw Marlon. Yeah, Marlon, thank you for joining us. Diehard Saints fan, so I'm sure you just missed our Saints segment, Marlon. So you missed your chance to gloat. We're already looking ahead to Baltimore. And I see we got Terry Rudd joining us, a diehard Niners fan. So thank you for tuning in tonight. Stopping the run will be key. We just talked about it, Terry. Our 2 biggest key matchups to start the show are Overshown trying to spy Lamar Jackson and Eric Kendricks trying to meet their running back on those power and dive plays. All right, let's get back into it with some of these key matchups. We'll go to the offensive side of the ball now. So if you guys heard me talking earlier in the show, the right side of the line has been suspect. And a lot of that has been attributable to Zach Martin, unfortunately. So Zach Martin this week, in my opinion, has to face the best defensive tackle in the NFL. And he goes by Nnamdi Madubuike now, but it used to be Justin Madubuike. This guy, I'll say the second best behind Chris Jones. But Madubuike is going to play the run just as well as the pass. He may have 40 tackles as a defensive tackle. He may have 10 sacks. The kid is special, and Zach Martin is going to see a lot of him this week. So on the offensive side of the ball, pay close attention to this matchup because the Ravens don't have a lot of pass rush, but this guy is kind of the engine that makes the front seven move. Josh Washington saying the line looked pretty good when Martin was out. TJ Bass wasn't a slouch. Hopefully we want to find out full time, Joshua, but you are right. It did look a little bit different when Zach Martin came out those few plays. All right, so Charles Moon making a comment, we need another receiver. CD can't do it by himself. That takes us to our next key matchup, which will be CeeDee Lamb versus Marlon Humphrey. Now, Marlon Humphrey is the all-pro cornerback, been one of the top 5 to 10 corners in the league for a while out of Alabama. He normally plays outside, but he will play inside when the matchup dictates it. And this is definitely one of those matchups that will dictate him playing inside. There are other corners. One of them is a rookie, and he missed last week. There's a chance he may not play this week. And then the other guy is just a guy. So you're going to put your best against your best. So we'll probably see CeeDee Lamb matched up quite a bit against Marlon Humphrey in this week's game. Couple of people saying we need to get Cooks involved. 100% agree. If there's any week to get Cooks involved, is this week, because I looked up a stat. The Ravens cornerbacks outside of Marlon Humphrey have been giving up 70% of the passes thrown to them. So that means almost 3 out of 4 passes thrown at corners outside of Marlon Humphrey have been completions. And their first round pick may not play this week. So if there's any week where Jalen Tolbert or Brandon Cooks wants to step up and make some plays, it's going to be this week. And the other reason is because the Ravens play a lot of cover one. And they play cover one because we'll go to our last matchup, and that is Jake Ferguson, if he returns, versus Kyle Hamilton. Kyle Hamilton, super talented safety out of Notre Dame. They use him as a tight end stopper. So if a team has a top tight end, Kyle Hamilton is going to cover him man-to-man pretty much every week. So those cornerbacks are going to be on the island quite a bit with those outside receivers. Kevin Nichols saying Cooks is about done this season, so let's hope he has something left. Mike Williams says we only scheme for CD. Hopefully Jake Ferguson has something to say about that, Mike Williams, this week. Let's see. A lot of comments about CD is not like Cooper. Disappears versus good corners. We're going to find out this week. Terry asked the question, is CD's ankle okay? He didn't practice today. Tomorrow's going to be the telling day because Thursday is kind of the day where you really know if a guy's going to play or not. So Terry, all the fans, pay attention to the injury report, the practice report tomorrow to see if CD is limited or did not practice. Terry saying, I think Tolbert is the one who should do well and should be featured this week. One of them has to step up because the matchups are there. All they got to do is take advantage of them because we're not running against the Ravens. There's no chance. And like I said, Humphrey's going to follow Lamb. Kyle Hamilton's going to follow Ferguson. The free safety is just going to be playing the field. The other 2 receivers should have some opportunities if they take advantage of them. Yeah. Ferguson had a lot to do with it, yeah. Raphael saying it would have been nice to bring in Michael Thomas. I agree. I'm shocked he's still at home. Another week or two of this, Raphael, and you'll probably get your wish. Mike Williams saying Tolbert had way too much hype this offseason, not be producing. I definitely agree with that. Somebody has to step up, and you would expect the guy going into his third year to be the guy to do it. Ice Cold Cowboy saying Zeke isn't on the fantasy radar this week. I 100% agree with the Ice Cold Cowboy. All right, so those are my 4 biggest key matchups for this week. We're at an hour. Got about another 15 minutes if you guys can stick with me. So just a quick recap. Eric Kendricks against Derrick Henry. Overshown against Lamar Jackson. Got to stop the running game. Then on offense, CeeDee Lamb's going to get Marlon Humphrey quite a bit. Zach Martin is probably going to, in my opinion, we don't play the Chiefs this year. So in my opinion, this will probably be the toughest matchup Zach Martin has this year with Nnamdi Madubuike. And then if Jake Ferguson returns, he's going to get a lot of man-to-man coverage with Kyle Hamilton. So let's hope that ankle and knee hold up. Okay, guys, so we're going to go to the next segment of the show. And this is our X Factor. So in this segment of the show, we talked about the key matchups. So now I'm going to talk about a couple of the guys who may not be household names, but they have the capabilities to be major difference makers in how this game turns out. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of our X Factors. I have 3 big ones for this week's game. So the first X Factor, a guy that doesn't get much credit, and that is the fullback, 6'3", 300-pound, converted defensive tackle, Patrick Ricard. So if you guys remember, at the top of the Ravens talk, I told you guys the Ravens like to run a lot of single back and they like to run a lot of I back. So when they run I back, they got 260-pound Derrick Henry behind 300-pound Patrick Ricard. Now, our linebackers are a little bit better, a little bit bigger right now. But I don't know if any of them are prepared to take on a 300-pound fullback in the hole. We're going to find out this week because Patrick Ricard is probably one of the best blocking fullbacks in the league. He's basically like having a guard in the backfield like we used to do with Connor McGovern a couple years back in Jumbo. But this is their base guy. He can also catch very well out of the backfield. So once those linebackers get tired of getting hit, he has enough athleticism to slip out there and make a couple of catches also. So Patrick Ricard is going to be a major factor in this team's success running the ball with Derrick Henry. Kevin Nichols saying, I hope they remember double A gap blitzes. I hope they do also. I hope we can get them in situations to even use them. That was our problem, Kevin. We never had the Saints in a 3rd and long situation to even fake or show a double A gap blitz. Jeff has Brandon Aubrey as an X factor. Brandon Aubrey can be an X factor every week, Jeff. I try to use different guys who aren't on everybody's radar, but there's going to be a couple of games, especially when it gets cold, where I'm going to have Brandon Aubrey as one of my X factors. So for this week on offense, I just talked about it. The Ravens cornerbacks outside of Marlon Humphreys give up 70% of their catches, of their passes thrown to them. CeeDee Lamb's going to get the best corner. Somebody has to step up. So if there's ever a game for Brandon Cooks to tap into what he was prior to coming to Dallas, this will be one of those games a la that, I think it was the Commanders game last year. So Brandon Cooks is going to have some opportunities with a single safety, one-on-one coverage, and we're going to need him to take advantage of it. So Brandon Cooks can be the guy who helps open up the offense, or he could be the guy who doesn't perform and we look like we did last week against the Saints. So I'm putting a lot of pressure on Brandon Cooks to be an X factor in our passing game. Jeff said he said Brandon Aubrey because this may be a defensive game. That's a good point also. I could have put Brandon Aubrey versus Justin Tucker as a key matchup because, like you said, Jeff, it could become a field goal game. You never know. Marlon saying y'all got to play Cook. Well, according to Jerry Jones, he did not see anything in the past 2 weeks to make him concerned about our running game, and he doesn't see a need to put Cook on the field. That came directly from Jerry Jones in the press conference yesterday. So hopefully he's blowing smoke up our butts, but normally when Jerry says something, he means it. So I would doubt we see Dalvin Cook this week. But let's hope for the best. Ice Cold Cowboy saying Cooks can't be trusted yet. Dak isn't 100% on page with him. I agree, but again, what are our options? CeeDee Lamb's going to get their best corner. Their strong safety is going to be playing in the box against the tight end often. Somebody has to win the one-on-one matchups. Somebody has to do it. Raphael saying hopefully Flournoy gets the call up in place of Brooks. I doubt that happens, Raphael. And I got to throw the special teams in there. If I'm not mistaken, Jalen Brooks is our personal protector on punt team. Whoever the personal protector is never going to be inactive unless somebody else steps up. So, unfortunately, Jalen Brooks is probably going to be an active player all year. So now you got to find somebody else who you can make inactive, Deuce Vaughn, to get Ryan Flournoy on the field. So pay attention to that because that's one of those roster mechanisms you got to pay attention to on how you get guys on the field. Marlon saying the real X factor is Jerry's ego. Technically, it's not an X factor because we know what his ego is. An X factor would be somebody who can either win it or lose it. We know what Jerry's doing for us, and it ain't on the good side for the most part. William Wiggins asked the question, do I think Parsons would be better as a traveling linebacker? I would say no, unless it's a game like the Saints game where they're just going to run it down our throats. If it's just a regular flow of the game, you want Michael Parsons at defensive end because he's going to put pressure on that tackle and he's going to give it to you on third downs. But if it's a game where they can just run it left or right whenever they want, yeah, you probably want to take Mike off the line of scrimmage, throw in ghosting, and let Micah just trying to roam free. So Terry giving us some of his pointers. Number 1, Joseph. Number 2, quarterback contain. Number 3, run to avoid being one-dimensional. 4, get Tolbert going. Those all sound good in theory, but that's a tall task to ask on all of them. Especially considering the Ravens, if I'm not mistaken, are only giving up like 35 yards rushing a game. It's going to be tough to keep running the ball if they keep running into 350-pound Michael Pierce, 340-pound Travis Jones, and 320-pound Justin Matabuke in their front seven. And then you got 2 linebackers in Roquan Smith, who may be the best linebacker in football, and then first-round pick Trenton Simpson. That front seven is ridiculous. Like, it almost makes you afraid to try to run the ball because they're disciplined and they're talented and they're never going to be out of position. So good luck trying to establish the run game. Skylar Devins, the ultimate optimist, saying Dak's going to show up and dime all game. William saying, I honestly feel like teams can plan for him at the end, like New Orleans. Everybody can't do what New Orleans does, especially if you never get put in third down situations. If it's a normal floor game and you can get teams in 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, it's hard to plan for Michael Parsons. Ice Cold Cowboy asked the question, what happened, Jerry, on missing out on J.K. Dobbins? In Jerry's defense, only on that one, J.K. Dobbins hasn't been healthy in 4 years. So if you've got 3 healthy running backs and you got J.K. Dobbins, I understand why you didn't take a chance. I would have personally, at a minimum, I would have tried to sign him to the practice squad, get him in camp, and see if we can talk him in the stand. But I understand why. And pretty much sums it up. We could cut the show off right there. Jerry likes his guys, plain and simple. All right, we got one more X Factor, and then we got our last segment of the show. Last X Factor. Zay Flowers. And I'm sorry, Matthew Hughart. I overlooked your comment. All the comments started flowing in quickly. Frank Gore Jr., if we had a spot on the practice squad, I would give it to him. But I doubt that happens. Just because, again, like William Wiggins says, Jerry likes his guys. Let's see. Last X Factor, Zay Flowers. We talked about them running 12 personnel. We talked about them running the ball. They don't pose the same problems the Saints have. The only one who could possibly give us issues would be Zay Flowers because of his explosiveness. So he could potentially be an X factor for that team by spreading the field, getting behind the corners and the safeties. But yeah, he may have some opportunities, but I like our cornerbacks against him. And again, they rely heavily on 12 personnel, the tight ends, and the running game. But if they do go to the passing game, this is a guy who could get behind the defense and make one of those Rashid Shaheed type plays that we saw last Sunday. Yeah, I wouldn't play him in fantasy, but he does have the ability to break the game open. Charles Moon, 100%. Ravens are going to make us one-dimensional. There's no way around it. I just don't see how we can run the ball. But I say that, and we go into our last segment, which is over-under. So let's go ahead and get into it, and let's talk about some of these stats, get you guys' thoughts.
Over-under.
You guys have been talking about Zeke and Dalvin Cook and Deuce Vaughn quite a bit. Our first over-under, the Ravens have not given up more than 35 yards rushing in the 2 games they played so far. Over-under, not all the running backs, any one running back getting 40 rushing yards. Over-under 40 rushing yards for any one of our running backs. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. William Wiggins saying over. Jeff saying over barely. Got a couple of overs in here. Okay. So you guys think that the Cowboys can break the trend. Raphael saying under. Ice Cold Cowboy having Zeke going for 56, which would be his season high so far. Mendoza asking a fantasy question. Cooks, Pittman, or Zay Flowers for wide receiver this week? Now, I know we got a couple of fantasy experts in the comments. So, Terry Rudd, I know he's a very good fantasy player. Jeff Mendoza's asking the question. So, let me know what you guys think. Michael Pittman, Brandon Cooks, or Zay Flowers this week? To me, Mendoza, that's a tough question. I would probably Let me go back to these over-unders and I'll go to the comments and give you guys a chance to respond. Skylar Dennis saying over. William Wiggins saying gutsy call, but over. Won't be to the third or fourth quarter. Jeff bringing up a great statistic. Zeke needs 40 yards to get over 9,000 yards. He's getting that. I didn't think you were going to catch on to that, Jeff. I was actually going to bring that up if a lot of people say it under, but I appreciate you. This is why I love Cowboys Nation Fifth Quarter Podcast. You guys are always on top of the stats, questions, and comments. So let's see. Let's go to Mendoza's question. William Wiggins saying Cooks. Kevin Nichols saying Pittman. Marlon saying Zay. So we got 3 different answers right there. Ice Cold Cowboy saying Pittman. Jeff saying Cooks. Yeah, Mendoza, they named all 3. I'll be honest. Do you have a fourth option? That would be my next question. If I had to go with one, I can't go with one, Mendoza, but what I will say, I think Cooks has the highest ceiling because of the matchups. Zay Flowers can be an X factor. I don't see him making a lot of plays, but he could make that one 50-yard touchdown a la Rashid Shaheed. I don't see it happening, but it could. I would probably lean towards Cooks or Pittman. And man, the Bears secondaries look really good. And Anthony Richardson has been looking really inaccurate. I would probably lean towards Cooks if I had to. Well, you got Rashid Rice, so I mean that's the no-brainer. I would probably go Rashid Rice. The Niners are playing who? Who are the Niners playing this week? Are they playing the Raiders? No, they played the Raiders last week. The Niners are playing the Rams, who looked like pure garbage last week against the Cardinals. But I think they're going to run the hell out of the ball. I would probably go Rice, Ayuk, then Cooks, if you're choosing 3. But Ayuk and Rice will probably be top 2. Just because the Rams have no answer. And the Niners are going to get a lot of opportunities. It's a rivalry game. Ayuk's been quiet. Yeah, but I like Rice. Rice is gonna get you 6 receptions for 60 yards. That's an easy 12 points. That's the safe bet with Rashid Rice. Cook's higher ceiling. So you guys are really responsive about the fantasy questions. So I definitely appreciate that, and I'm sure Mendoza does also. Not a good fantasy football defense this week, the Niners. Jeff giving a shout out to the Jordan Mason pickup. Didn't even have to use a waiver for him. So big ups to you in our league. No. Do not take Tony Pollard out this week. Tyjae Spears probably won't play. And the Titans play the Packers. They're going to just go back and forth running the ball. Tony Pollard is a must start this week. All right, so let's go back into our over-unders. We just did the Cowboys over-under. Let's go to the other side of the ball with Derrick Henry. So Derrick Henry had 86 yards last week. Week 1, he only had 47. This week, over-under 70 rushing yards for Derrick Henry. Over under 70 rushing yards for Derrick Henry. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. William Wiggins comes in early with the under, and somebody else made a comment. William Wiggins again. This podcast is hands down my favorite. Definitely appreciate that, William. We've been doing it for a while. Still trying to work the bugs out, but we hope we're giving you guys a product that you can enjoy and appreciate joining us for an hour and a half once a week. So William coming in with the under, and it looks like everybody else is going over. So William Wiggins looks like you're the lone wolf on this one. Jeff says over. Skylar says over. Kevin says over. Unfortunately, William trying to support his thought process. Zim will have a plan for him. He's a big body, not able to slip away like Kamara. Definitely agree with that, but Zim's going to have a plan for him, but the Ravens have a plan also, and that's getting Derrick Henry the ball as many times as possible. Ice Cold giving him 100. Marlo also saying over. And Matt Hughart looks like a new name, so definitely appreciate you joining us, and I definitely appreciate the kind words. All right, we got 2 more over-unders, and then we'll get out of here. The next over-under, we just talked about this a couple of times. Again, CeeDee Lamb's going to get guarded by Marlon Humphrey. The Ravens' other corners give up 70% of the passes. One of these guys needs to step up. Which one of them can get 40 yards? Do we have over for any of these guys? And if you have over, also let me know which guy you think it is. So if it's under, I know what your answer is. But if it's over, let me know what guy you think gets the over. Mendoza and Williams saying over. Jeff also saying over with Cooks. Matt, thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry. Charges to my head, not to my heart. We do a lot of shows. As you can see, we got a lot of great viewers, a lot of great comments. So sometimes the names don't always click as often as they should, but I definitely appreciate you continuing to support the Fifth Quarter Podcast. So Jeff has over on Cooks. Skylar has over for Cooks also. Got an Oregon State fan in the house. Got Marlon saying over. Let me know, Marlon, who do you think? Let me know who you think the guy's going to be for over. And Marlon doing an early bold prediction and saying Cook scores twice. I'll be sure to make a note of that for bold predictions on Sunday. Ice Cold Cowboy cooks for 60. Matthew saying over also. So we got a lot of overs, and it looks like it's overwhelmingly in favor of Brandon Cooks for this week. So definitely going to be paying attention to him and seeing if he can live up to all you guys' expectations. So we got the last over under of the night. And as you guys know, with the last one, it's kind of either or. So for this week's last over under, we're expecting Jake Ferguson to play this week. Which tight end has more receiving yards? Is it Jake Ferguson? Is it Isaiah Likely, who stepped up big in week 1 for the Baltimore Ravens? Or is it the former All-Pro Mark Andrews? Who has more receiving yards this week at the tight end position? Let me know you guys' thoughts. Jeff coming in with the quick Mark Andrews response. If I'm not mistaken, Jeff, I think you're heavily invested in Mark Andrews in fantasy on a couple of teams. So I'm pretty sure that's wishful thinking. Ice Cold Cowboy saying I like Likely. William Wiggins saying Likely and Andrews. Mendoza saying I think Likely has a good game. I want to see how Jake looks on that knee. I'm interested to see how we cover Likely this week, because he's not your traditional tight end. They use him kind of like an Aaron Hernandez, kind of a wide receiver, tight end hybrid guy. So I'm interested to see how our defense responds and how we try to cover him. Skylar Devins going with Big Ferguson, Cowboys guy. We got Marlon saying Ferguson also. And William Wiggins saying I got Ferguson and Andrews in fantasy. So I'm sure you're hoping the answer is not likely. Jeff joining us, longtime follower, longtime fan, been on the show a couple of times. He wants to add another over under for the show. Over under 3 field goals for Aubrey or Tucker. 3 field goals over under. Jeff thinks this is going to be a big defensive game, so it's going to be won on the legs of our kickers. Let me know if it's over. Let me know which kicker you think it is. And if it's under, of course, I know what your thoughts are. 3 field goals, over, under, and which kicker? William Wiggins saying over on both. Marlon saying Aubrey over. Definitely agree with that. All right, let's get a couple of more on this last over under, and then we'll exit the show. Ice Cold Cowboy. Aubrey's the number 1, so over. Skylar Dennis saying Aubrey gets the record this week, 70 yards. And Mendoza saying Aubrey over also. All right, guys. So that's all we have for this week's show. I'm ready to see Aubrey kick that 70-yarder also. I hope it's at home so we can have perfect conditions. I would hate to see him try it outside. You have the field conditions that could cause a injury, and then you have the wind that could affect the ball in the air. So if he does try to go for 70, I like to see it at home or in a dome. Aubrey versus Tucker, but 17 gets the dub. Martin saying, I missed the Saints segment. Yeah, we pretty much just bagged on how bad our defense was, Marlon. You guys, let me say this and then we'll get out of here. We have to find an answer for these Shanahan, Mike, McDaniel, Kyle, Sean McVay concepts. They're killing us. The Saints just picked up. Who did they pick up for their offensive coordinator? It's a Clint Kubiak. Thank you, Jeff. They just picked up Clint Kubiak, another one of those Shanahan disciples. All these guys run the same offense, and none of them can be stopped by Dallas. At some point, we have to fight fire with fire. We got to go get one of these young hotshot pass game coordinators out of San Francisco. We got to get Bobby Slowick from the Lions and make him a head coach, or we got to go to San Francisco and get one of their pass game coordinators, quarterback coaches, and just name him offensive coordinator. We got to do that at some point because this is starting to get ridiculous. This Shanahan tree has just been the death of us in terms of Cowboy fans. And it doesn't matter who our defensive coordinator is. And Jeff summed it up perfectly. It's motion. We're undisciplined and we consistently let motion kill us. Yeah. 100% agree with it, William. Yeah, we're busy trying to get retired head coaches. I know a lot of fans are going to say, well, we need to get Bill Belichick next year. We need to go name your favorite head coach from 2010 out of retirement. We got to go young. We got to get innovative. It probably won't happen because young guys won't do what Jerry says because they're young and innovative. And Jerry likes to live in the prehistoric times. But at some point, we got to go get one of these young guys at OC head coach. We got to make a guy like an Al Harris a defensive coordinator. And we just got to let those guys build this thing from the ground up and let them roll with the punches. Yeah. You missed the segment, Marlon, but yeah, everything I talked about centered around Taysom Hill. And if you remember last week, I said one of their biggest X factors in this game would be Taysom Hill. I don't love Bill Belichick for us next year. I don't think he would take the job unless Jerry gave him free reign. And he may give structure and discipline. I feel like the times have passed him, personally. Yep. Jerry would rather pay his offensive coordinator more money than his head coach. That's definitely true, Kevin Nichols. Yeah, I don't want Bill either. I know one thing that'll happen. If you guys want better receivers, you're not going to get them if Bill Belichick is on the watch. You know what type of receivers Bill Belichick brings in. I'll just leave it at that. All right, so that's pretty much all we got for this week's show. I want to thank you guys for joining us. Another great show, hour and 30 minutes. Once again, the show is fueled by Fifth Quarter Nation. You guys, great questions, great comments, helping each other out in the chat. So it's always a pleasure sitting in front of you guys and just getting a chance to see how knowledgeable the fan base is. Because I promise you, if you look outside of this ecosphere that we've built, you're going to get a lot of nonsense from Cowboys fans, media, podcasters, what have you. But I love doing this show, and you guys always motivate me to continue to come back and just talk real NFL and Cowboys football. So we're going to do a pregame show this week. So make sure you join me this Sunday, 11:15 Central Standard Time for our pregame show. We're going to do our injury report. We're going to do our keys to victory. Then we're going to do our game predictions. And we're also going to talk a little bit about some fantasy favorites to take you guys into another slate of NFL games. So be sure to join us this Sunday. Next Wednesday, my schedule is booked, so I may not be doing the show next Wednesday. I'm going to probably do it on Thursday. I got to see what game's coming on. If it's a trash game like normal, we'll probably just do it and just keep track of the show. Keep track of the game as the show progresses. If I do it Thursday, I'll try to make the show short because I want to watch football also, and I don't want to keep you guys for long. Or I may start the show at 9 o'clock. So I'll see how my schedule looks. So we may do the show Wednesday at 9, or we may do it next Thursday at 7:30. So just continue, like, subscribe, follow, be on the lookout for that. But after next Wednesday, you can find us every other Wednesday, 8:30 Central Standard Time for the Fifth Quarter Podcast. Once again, I put my YouTube link in the comments. So as the show ends, I greatly appreciate it if you guys would just take a second, click that link, hit that subscribe button, stay notified for all future Fifth Quarter Podcast episodes. Once again, thank you guys for joining us. Really appreciate you guys taking an hour and a half to listen to me talk Cowboys football and to give your thoughts. I will see you guys this Sunday. I'll see you next week at a time I haven't determined yet. But after that, every Wednesday, 8:30 Central Standard Time, you'll find me right here for the Fifth Quarter Podcast. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, let's go Cowboys. I'll see you guys on Sunday.